In this first segment, we'll be looking at issues of truth. Peter, I know the students that I have conversations with talk about truth all the time, whether it's in the media or in their everyday lives.
And not only with students, but with adults as well. And there's almost like, well, there is an inner desire for us to find out what is true, what is the truth, because we base just common everyday ideas on things that are true or not. So we deal with it every day one way or the other. The problem is, though, that it might seem like it's one thing and then another time another. And so we struggle with this nature of truth. It's like this straw in this glass. You look at it first glance, only on the surface looking, and it looks bent. But a little bit further, you just simply probe a little bit deeper, and you have something that's straight. You see the difference. So it looks like one thing if you just casually look at it, but when you dig just a little bit deeper, you can actually find out the true nature of the straw there. So that's what the series here is all about, to unpack the nature of truth, reality, and try to figure out what we can discover together.
Three different options, three perspectives. Only one can really be true. I feel like I'm in some Hindu parable. 6 blind guys touch an elephant, and each one thinks they're touching something else. The guy with the trunk thinks he's touching a snake. The guy touching the leg thinks he's touching a tree. The tail a rope, the ear a leaf. But what part of this thing am I touching? Why didn't any of those blind men get it in their heads to feel around the whole thing? That's the only way to know. To feel the whole thing.
I think the elephant parable was actually really helpful. I'd never heard it before, but it makes sense where, everybody, all these Hindu blind guys are touching this elephant, and they all think that they found what's right, what's true, but really they haven't found the whole and touched the whole side of the elephant. They don't know that it's an elephant. They're just getting bits and pieces. When I think about the elephant parable, I realize that there must be some kind of outsider. I didn't realize it before, but if they are all blind and they're touching some different part of the elephant, there has to be some kind of outsider that knows what is true, that knows and sees the whole elephant.
All right, the parable seems to make sense at first glance, like the straw idea we looked at in the beginning. But at the same time, if the parable is accurate, it's supposed to represent this. Everybody in the world is blind. All people are blind to what reality really is. So you and I are blind. But let's say we're in that parable and you and I are touching something.
Okay.
Can we ever know it's an elephant?
I wouldn't guess so.
Right. We don't know what it is because we've never heard of it. We've never seen one before. Unless there's something out there telling us something about it, we would not know.
Okay.
So even the parable, if I was telling the parable, I'd have to be cited in order to give the parable at all. So as an analogy, it doesn't work at all.
We all believe that something different is true, then nothing is really true. So that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, what about the idea that if everything's true, then nothing's true?
Well, the idea that if everything's true, then nothing's true is exactly spot on. Because if everything was true, imagine if we had 20 people with us and each one of them gave us directions to the airport, and they're all different directions, right? And somewhere in there you're going to have opposite directions, go north, go south. And you look at that and you say, that's like go north, that means nothing to me. So if everything were true, it would include its opposite, and that means nothing. So it can't be everything is true.
Okay.
First principles are the fundamental assumptions underlying any academic pursuit. As Aristotle said, they are the foundations of all knowledge. These principles are self-evident. Now, the key principles we can use to evaluate worldviews are the law of non-contradiction and the law of identity. The law of non-contradiction states that two opposing ideas cannot both be true at the same time in the same sense, and any attempt to deny this principle is self-defeating, as one must use it in order to deny it. And then the law of identity basically states that you just need to define your terms. Are there certain truths that are universal, transcendent, and unchanging? This is opposed to the relativist belief that truth is relative dependent upon the individual, the culture, etc. Now, in the light of the law of non-contradiction, when a relativist says that relativism is true, he automatically assumes that there is an opposite worldview, that opposite worldview being absolute truth, and that worldview must be false. Now, to give an example, say I'm a relativist, and I say, all truth is personal. Now, someone might come up to me and respond, well, is that view personally true for you alone, or is it true for me and everybody else as well? Now, the reason this is key is because the original statement, the statement, all truth is personal, asserts that all truth is relative, all truth is personal, except the belief that there is no absolute truth, which is itself an absolute statement.
When I think about the elephant parable, I realize that there must be some kind of outsider. I didn't realize it before, but if they are all blind and they're touching some different part of the elephant, there has to be some kind of outsider that knows what is true, that knows and sees the whole elephant.
Now, the outsider idea is interesting. Think about that. Unless somebody defines reality and gives us some clues about it, we would never know what to say about it at all. So this discovery of what truth is like becomes very critical. We discovered it's not personal, right?
So something can't just be true for me.
Right. I mean, if it's just true for you, it wouldn't be true for both of us. It can't be true for both of us at the same time, right? So that's the idea if it's just personal. The other thing we found out is that it's objective. It's outside of us. There's something independent about it. We can't create it. Like you said before, we can't prefer it, right? Now, our preference might match it, but we just can't make it up and say that that's true. So these ideas that it's independent of who we are, our thinking, it exists beyond us, we can discover it, it doesn't change at all, it's there the way it is, it's reality, are statements that we can make about truth that begin to describe the nature of truth.
Okay.
All right, and as we went through some examples, we could continue to do it. If you can't get out of it, then it's all around us, like the law of gravity, for example, right? It's there, we're bound by it. So truth has this kind of sense of ultimate reality to it. We're just kind of bound by it, like gravity.